that. And then we have a whole bunch of script interludes. And that's it. So, and then we have the main one with the actual code is pet.js. And that's wrapped in this function called x.onReady, which ensures that the documents, that the page is finished loading before it tries to do anything. And then, so we go down through here, and then we're defining from stores, so the vets, the pet types, specialties. And then we're loading up we're loading these in batch using the DWR call batching function. Because if we did 3 separate round trips to the server on every page load, it would be a lot slower. DWR has the notion of batching calls together, so you can queue up calls and then execute. It batched up 3 calls, get vets, get specialties, get the pet types, and then when it got the results back, it divvied out the appropriate callbacks, which is a very cool feature. And then we create create some grids, and you'll see here an example of a listener. So we have a listener for the row selective end, which it isn't doing anything in this case. But the core of it is the viewport, which defines the top level page layout. So we'll see the north element is that panel header saying pet store.
So is your entire application in that one file, effectively?
Yeah.
Can you delete it out?
Oh yeah. Just for the purposes of giving the simplicity, I've kind of done it in one file. But yes, in fact, it is far better practice to maintain, because what you can do is make each component module. So what I can do is this panel is kind of responsible for itself. So I can actually just put this in one script file and reference it. So I basically want my tree panel, and I know that there's a tree panel is in that one place. Because I mean, scrolling through this might look a bit intimidating because there's quite a lot of lines, but actually most of this is just config. So here, like for example, there's a combo box. It's basically a lot of these are just overriding defaults for the behaviour. And actually, just while we're here, I'll show you the documentation. So the documentation, of course, is itself an EXT application, and it shows you, some of the slickness that you can get with EXT. So just in terms of how you navigate documentation, it all has the standard format of the first section is the config options, which is the JSON you can pass into the object. So it's basically this big block here. And then the next section is the public properties which you can reference. Then you have the public methods, which is the API for the component. And finally, you have all the events which you knows about. So so for example, like enable, render. So this enables you to hook into the life cycle of every component within the page. So, any questions at this stage? Yeah.
Does it degrade as well? I mean, what happens if somebody does up JavaScript? Would you just end up with
yes, basically. I mean, as I said, the kind of cases where it's not suitable. If you have scripts turned off, what are you going to do? That's most Ajax applications will break horribly if you turn scripts off. That's fact. If you're relying on JavaScript for your application, you either provide a plain text version of the stripped down version of the application, or you don't. There's not really any way around it. If you're doing JavaScript, you're doing JavaScript.
I mean, there's some frameworks which do some sort of introspection on the HTML itself.
Well,
then if JavaScript is actually
yeah, I mean, if you're generating it on the server side, then you could probably do it as a standard script-free thing, but it would be very convoluted. You're simply not going to be able, because these kind of applications are really hard to do, the old way, which is why they never were done. But I suppose actually just to show you a couple of other things before we.
Talking about JavaScript, is there a way you can sniff on the browser to see if the JavaScript is sort of disabled?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, like the NoScript thing. Well, I suppose if you had the NoScript, what you could do is put an image in the NoScript block, and if that hit, you would know JavaScript was turned off. What good that will do is debate, but yeah. So here is an example of what you can do with EXT. I found this is pretty cool. It's a complete desktop. So you've got this. You'll notice the Vista theme. You'll notice, I mean, I don't know about you, but the first time I saw this, I was very impressed. It's pretty sweet. So you get all of the minimize, maximize behavior. What else have we got? Yeah, another example of a grid. All the usual sort of grid behaviors.
So presumably they have some kind of standard way of applying themes, so you can basically create your own theme.
Absolutely, yeah. So let's go back to my little pet link. If we actually let's look at the structure of what you get with EXT, right? So with EXT, the two files you actually need are XOR and XBase. If you're using a prototype or jQuery, then you probably want to use one of the adapters. Right. There's also a debug version of the XOR, which isn't as compressed, so it's actually readable because the XOR is minified, and as you can see, doesn't make for happy reading, but it does save greatly on download speed. So you get the XOR, and then in terms of the CSS, what you get is another piece of CSS called. XOR. And their theme packs are applied on top of that. So at the moment, if I look at my petclinic.jsp, the only thing I've got included is XOR and my custom CSS. So if I also now include one of the theme scripts, which is XT, because X comes with two themes, which is the standard blue theme.
GRA1.
So, now hit that. And then we should have got substantial grey areas. So this is quite a cool thing. All of these these themes reference these image folders, and there's a lot of there's images for everything. So the default theme has a folder called unsurprisingly default, but there's also the grey Vista themes that come with it, and there are loads of user submitted themes, or you can create your own. And if you have a UI designer with the time, you can create anything something that looks like whatever you want. Okay, I mean, any other questions at this stage?
Real world applications have you built with EXT?
Well, at this stage, because we're basically using some components. We're moving. I think the next big enterprise application we do will be very much, pretty much 100% X. But we've been using progressive adoption because, as I said, the way to get it to get comfortable with it is to focus on one feature and start using that, like the grids, because you could happily use an X grid in a normal page. You can just drop that in and have it point at a particular div in the page and have it render out to that. At the moment we've been using like the windowing functions, the tabs, the autocompletes. Sort of piecemeal, but I think the next step is going to the full layout.
You mentioned at the beginning that it wasn't particularly good for that kind of unintrusive. What are the drawbacks?
Well, the main drawback is to do with the render time and also the kind of layout. You need to if you're doing, if you're maintaining the rest of the page, you obviously need to make sure the layout works. I would slightly qualify that. I don't think it's not that it's bad at it. It's just that it's kind of more work. But there's no reason why you couldn't, for example, have an X page, have a normal page with a couple of X components in it, and that might be a good starting point.
For enterprise applications, how do you cope with the accessibility issues and DWR compliance?
I mean, certainly, accessibility is another thing. And in general, with accessibility with JavaScript is an ongoing sort of concern. I mean, there are certainly ways around it, but the problem is that there are certain sort of user interface paradigms which really don't work. How does a screen reader really describe a tab tree? It's very difficult for them to ever be accessible. So I suppose in those cases you kind of need to, if you have hard requirements, there are certain UI things you can't do. But if you don't, then you can go all out. I guess the last thing I'd just like to talk about is, skip right ahead, is performance. Because obviously the whole goal of this is to make your app friction and by application faster, because no one likes a slow application. If you haven't read this book, I really suggest you read it. It's very short and quite cheap, but it's Steve Suder's book, and it's common sense things that the Yahoo guys have found that make a really big difference to how your pages are perceived. Because it's a really interesting metric that 95% of the user experience is spent actually on the client side. So if you look at the page download time, you'll see like 5% is actually spent generating the HTML on the server. The rest is spent downloading the CSS, the images, parsing the JavaScript, executing the JavaScript until a few seconds later the page is ready to use. So optimizing the server side won't get you that much benefit. If you just tweak a few things on the client, you can get big gains. Just basically put CSS always at the top. So most people do this anyway, but not having CSS there blocks rendering. One thing that very few people do, but is really important, is put your JavaScript at the bottom of the page, right before the closing body tag. This seems really counterintuitive, but actually the way it works is that JavaScript blocks rendering. So the important thing is to show something to the user. That's why I had the loading div before the JavaScript, because it gets rendered and then it starts thinking about the JavaScript. Minify JavaScript, use a compressor. There's the YUI compressor is a wonderful tool because it uses writing to compile the JavaScript and spit out compiled JavaScript in a really compact form. Another thing which it's a no-brainer really, it's so easy to do, is gzip. Enable gzip on your server if you can, or use gzip filter. There's one with EHCache. And it's trivial to set up, but it'll make a big difference in terms of the download speed. If you're serving clients over a wide area, like if you're serving clients on DSL or dial-up, even if you're serving clients internally, it will save quite a bit of bandwidth. One thing is also actually gzip JSON. Because it's text, it gzips down to a fraction. You can transfer large object graphs and they squish down to a couple of K. So that will really help keep things snappy. Also, minimise the number of rows. That's fairly obvious because each round trip takes time. So batch them up if possible. And combine scripts. Another thing is try not to. JavaScript is single threaded, so everything you do will block everything else, and this can really bite you. So to maintain a continuity of user experience, never more than half a second to do any one thing. You should structure it so that you don't do too much computation at one time. But yeah, check the book out. You can get substantial gains in doing it. And also, there's a plugin for Firefox called Whistler, which will really help. It analyzes your page and gives you a mark. If you're using Windows, use Fiddler. Brilliant. It's one of the best. It comes from the IE team, but it's not rubbish. And it's an HTTP protocol analyzer, sniffer. It does everything. It's so useful because you can replay requests and fiddle with them and see what happens if you change the parameters. See what happens if you change the headers. You can capture traffic. It's great. And of course, Firehawk, which you've seen a little bit of. It makes JavaScript the debugging not suck. I'd say as a web developer, you need to know JavaScript. Period. End of. Because if you don't know JavaScript, you don't know half of your tool. The web browser is your tool. You may think you may be a server-side developer, maybe your job role allows you to only be a server-side developer, but really, you need to know at least something about JavaScript. And I think, it's worth it. So, any final questions?
Right. One question, what's the minimum browser requirements?
IE5 for X, IE5, I think it's similar to the DWR. Pretty much anything released in the last 3 years should work. And that's another good reason to use libraries like this is that they take away the pain of browser compatibility. This is one of the core reasons for existence for JavaScript libraries is abstracting away the difference so that you as a developer don't care that the method signature in IE is .addEvent, whereas in it's the W3C method signature in Firefox. These sort of things can be abstracted away. The layout quirks and the rendering differences get squashed for you because other people have felt the pain already.
But for those who do have an allergy to JavaScript, is GWTX viable alternative?
Yeah, I didn't intend to mention it. Yeah, GWTX, it's certainly viable. The only caveat is that as it stands, it's only on 1.1. X2 is very cool. I don't know how active they are. And also, I noticed that the main developer is doing isn't open sourcing his remoting components, and that would be the real power. Would be the kind of the remoting if it hooked into GWT's RPC mechanism, which is very efficient, very good. But yeah, I'd say it's a pretty good marriage. If that's the way you want to go, and if you're happy with GWT, then go for it. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks very much. I have an idea, a JetBrains idea license to win 3 free books. I think 2 of them are filthy rich books, and one is Brian Getz's book on concurrent code. Oh, yeah. The first one, you pick out.
It's Phil.
here line. I need a license.
You have to come and get something.
Oh, I know.
Cool. What license is that? Is that just
I think it's the full license for, you just go download IDEA and I'll put you in touch with the guy. They'll send you the license key. And another one.
All right, we have Gregor N.
Gregor. Which one do you want? Quick. Good, okay. One more.
Razak.
Razak.
That's for you.
Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm sorry I'm really late. Of course I'm Peter Pilgrim, the JUGLeader of the JavaWug user group. So I'm going to talk to you very briefly, give you a heads up and a little bit of admin before we get started into the presentation. Of course, those of you who are into know about software development know that we need a bit more than technology to do our jobs. It's becoming increasingly important that we have communication skills, great presentation skills, and how we influence managers. So I'm going to put forward some ideas. There's an offer for presentation training from TLC Power Talk, and if you are a JavaWug user group member or know a friend of a friend, then you can apply to me and I can direct you to this lady called Terry Newsons, who really has helped me prepare some of my presentation and up my game. Moving on, Skills Matter is one of the sponsors of QCon, and that organisation has been in contact with me. So they're holding a conference in March from the 10th to the 14th. So if you are interested in discounts, then just see me afterwards. Next question. Do we have any? Can you please stand up, Evans, Matt? Sebastian? These are our JavaWug user group volunteers who are helping me and us helping this community thrive in 2008. Emmett is responsible for the next BOF and is doing the promotions and announcements. Evans here is looking after the blog site, and Sebastian is helping subscriptions. So all your subscriptions probably come if your new members are coming through. Sebastian. Are there any members of the Enterprise Java user group, EJUG, here? Well, the EJUG, unfortunately, their JUGLeader closed, so there'll be no more meetings, and that's the way it is because of pressure. So I'd like you to thank these guys for helping us bring the JavaWug user group. And finally, we have some presentations up until May. We have Lewis Emmett, who's going to talk to us about EXT and DWR. He talked to us about the Open Symphony Compass and Apache Lucene last year. And we have Stephen Colburn in March, who's a fellow Java champion. Got a guy called Russell Gellman who's going to talk to us about his web application framework. Sebastian, I believe you're going to talk about EJB 3.1 and JBoss, and Phil Zhang will talk to us about Impala framework. So, that is it. There was a couple of other points. when the Java Web user group was really small, we used to have these dinners, and I don't know, and one or two of you have specified you'd like to do a lunch or an evening dinner instead of an ice forward presentation. So that might be interesting. Lewis, you took part in 2006 with the open space technology. Is that something you might be interested in again?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that can work. Yeah.
And that is about it. The Java Web group, user group is still growing. We have 5 presentations fully booked up until May. I'm hoping to get one of the Spring guys to come along and talk to us about OSGI and dynamic modules. Fingers crossed that he may not be able to do that. Like a powerless person has also volunteered to stand in if this cannot take place. So, here is Lewis Emmett, a lead developer at Lehman Brothers, and he's going to talk to you about EXT and DWR. Please welcome Lewis Emmett once again. Thank you.